What's up YouTube, Capital G here, talking about an archetype that I started playing a couple of weeks ago that has now become maybe my favorite deck in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! To play. Not exactly sure how long that's gonna last. Maybe it lasts 6 months. Maybe it ends up lasting throughout the entire Reigns era. But right now, I am having an absolute blast playing this deck. What deck are you talking about, Cap G? I am talking about Outergeist. And I'm pretty sure that about 40% of the people just turned off the video right there, threw their hands up and said, fuck this, I am not about to sit here and listen to Cap G tell me this table 500 deck will be the next Zodiac. Shout outs to Lithium. No, I'm not actually going to tell you that this deck is going to be the next big thing or how amazing the deck is and why you should play it, because you can steal victories from your opponents and it's going to be the deck that breaks through and tops some YCS and nobody sees it coming, because I'm not sure if I actually believe that. I don't think that this deck will ever be a huge factor in the competitive meta, but a lot of why I like Outergeist and a lot of my enjoyment has nothing to do with the competitive implications with this deck. It's not because I believe this deck is all that good. I think that this deck could probably top some regionals. YCSs, I'm not quite sure about that, but yeah, its competitiveness really doesn't have anything to do with why I'm playing this deck and why I'm really enjoying it so much. It actually has to do with some of the other qualities about the archetype, and it's really weird because if you actually play Archetypes, right? Let's say you know the deck in and out. It's a really hard deck to describe. If you're like, if somebody you knew asked you, what does Outergeist do? That's a really hard question to ask. It's not straightforward like Trickstars where you're like, oh, it pokes and burns, or Goki, it's a beatdown deck. You know, put big monsters on the board, beat your opponent over the head with them. Like, I can't even right now explain what exactly, like what one thing Outergeist really does. It controls, but like that's so open-ended. What does that even mean, Cap G? Like, it's a deck that I guess I can best describe as it doesn't do any one thing all that great, but it does a bunch of little things really well. It's like a collection of a bunch of B- cards. And one of the things that I've noticed probably since I started watching the anime Arc V, right? One of the things that I noticed about Arc V that is another reason why I like Outergeist is the female decks, like the decks that the female protagonists play. Is it me, or are they just infinitely more interesting than the decks that the guys play? When I look at the female decks, usually they're colorful, and yeah, they're, you know, a lot of times they're primarily they're built on a bunch of like female monsters, but like they're colorful. The artwork seems like it has a lot more detail. It seems like it's a lot more rich and visually pleasing. These cards seem, and they're not just the cards, but like the mechanics that they have just seem a lot more interesting than what the guys have. With most of the male characters, it's like their deck is either like, you know, a bunch of like angry demons or dragons, and it's just like, you know what I mean? That just kind of gets boring after like 15 years of Yu-Gi-Oh! When you look at like the girls' decks, you know, they're cute and they're alluring, and a lot of times their artwork is like really pretty and it stands out and it's like colorful. And that's one of the things that kind of like it's attractive to me in a deck, is like when a deck has a bunch of like bright colors. It's something that I like. Like if you look at Madoche, the artwork on Madoche across the board is like magnificent. And if you look at some of the female archetypes like Wind Witches or Melodious, you can, I mean, maybe you don't think that they're the greatest archetypes, and I'm definitely not saying that this transfers into them decks being like obviously competitive, but if you look at like Trickstars or Wind Witches, even Lunalights, just from a visual standpoint, the decks look really great, and Outergeist is kind of in that mix. The names in the archetype are painfully difficult to pronounce, and they're not very memorable at all. In fact, I'm not sure why they're so complicated. This deck has absolutely no spells, unless, because I know that the character who plays them in the anime, her name is Ghost Girl, aka Emma. She's dueling against Revolver right now, and that's one of the reasons why I want to start watching Reigns again, because I kind of want to know how invested I should get in this deck, because if she shows a bunch of new cards in that duel, which I'm going to assume she shows at least a couple of new cards, then I want to know about those cards, be like, oh shit, I definitely got to invest in this deck. And I picked up everything in this archetype for like $8 flat. If you guys are looking at the picture, I'm pretty sure I'll have the picture at some point right here. That's another thing I like about the deck, is almost everything in the deck is like hollow. The deck has like 3 ultra rares right now, and they cost absolutely nothing. Now, to give you guys a quick breakdown on what some of the cards actually do, I'm kind of just going to summarize them really quickly. Altergeist Milusic is one of the main cards that you'll see. She's an ultra rare, and it's a really good card. It's actually one of the reasons why I think that this deck should usually go second. She has 500 attack. She's level 1. Her stats suck, but her effect more than makes up for it. You can attack your opponent directly, and then anytime she does battle damage, you send one of your opponent's cards to the graveyard. It does unfortunately target, but it doesn't destroy, which is nice. And then if she goes to the graveyard from the field, then she can search another Altergeist monster from your deck to your hand. So it's a really good way of being able to just tutor your deck, and it does not have to be destroyed. You can send her to the graveyard with like the Altergeist traps, or you can obviously link summon and her effect will activate. You also have the Altergeist Marionetta. This is another good card that you probably want to summon turn 1. If you're going first, you want to summon this because this is much like the Weather Painter Snow. You summon Marionetta to the field, and then it lets you set one of your Altergeist traps straight on the field, and then she can actually send any Altergeist card that you have face up on the field, and you can target one of your Altergeists in the graveyard, and you basically swap those, and you can send herself. We have Sequidius. Sequidius it's one of the quick effects in this deck, so you can use it during your opponent's turn. It's not a card you ever want to really put on the field by itself, and you don't generally want to summon it turn 1 because you won't have another Altergeist. But what it does is you can target another face-up Altergeist card you have on the field, and then you can target one card your opponent controls, and you bounce those cards. It's really nice because Altergeists have a theme, Call of the Haunted, and you can Call of the Haunted Sequidius back to the field, and then you can target Sequidius, or excuse me, you can target the Call of the Haunted and your opponent's card, and then you'll get to bounce those cards. And it's a nice way of removing like a problem card your opponent has if they have like a Floodgates, or if they have like a big boss monster or something like that. And then when Sequidius goes to the graveyard, it floats as well. It actually adds a trap from your graveyard back to your hand. So a lot of times if you Call of the Haunted him back, you can target the Call of the Haunted, the materialization, you can bounce it to your hand, and you can basically plus, and you can get rid of your opponent's monster at the same time. And then the last one, I honestly just call this one Horse, but it's called Conquery. But this one special summons itself from the hand. It is level 5, so it's not something you're ever really going to normal summon. When your opponent declares an attack and you have another Altergeist card on the field, you can summon this card, you negate that attack, and then you can target a monster on the field, and you actually negate that monster's effect as long as that card and your Conquery are both face up on the field. After you summon Conquery on the field, you generally want to bounce it with Sequidius back to your hand so you can use it again, because the card has 0 attack, so it's not something that's really going to be doing any damage, but you can use it for a link summon, you can use it for protocol on the field, or worst case scenario, you can send it to the graveyard for something like Spellbook of Knowledge. They also have a couple of spells, or excuse me, a couple of traps that are really good. Protocol is a card that you'll see a lot of times Altergeist players flip up really early. It is essentially a walking Divine Wrath, or a continuous Divine Wrath. It's not a walking because it's a trap card. You send any other face-up Altergeist card you control to the graveyard, and then you get to negate any monster effect your opponent or your opponent activated, and you obviously destroy that monster as well. And it's really good because even though it's a Divine Wrath, it doesn't require you to send your monsters. You can actually send like another trap or something like that, which is really cool. But if you do send some of these monsters, obviously, as I said earlier, they do float. And then the last trap, which I'm not going to talk about all the Altergeist cards, just really the good ones. Altergeist Materialization. This is the Call of the Haunted. This is like one of the best reasons why this deck is actually really fun to play. It's a theme Call of the Haunted. It is searchable, and a lot of times what you can do is you can end up bouncing this, and then you can bounce to Sequidius, and then you can actually just kind of make advantage and do just a lot of nut shenanigans. One of the reasons why you don't see a lot of people playing Altergeist, why you haven't seen them see basically any play, like I would be shocked if you guys ever went to like an event and you saw anybody playing Altergeist, is because they have 2 Link monsters, and Ghost Girl probably used another Link monster in her duel versus Revolver, which is going on now. The problem is the Link monster that came out in Circuit Break, Prime Banshee, is absolute garbage. That card is just, it's atrocious. It is legit terrible. And the Link monster coming out in Extreme Force is amazing because that card actually negates spells and traps. And if you combine that with Protocol, the card that can negate monster effects, then you can basically lock down anything your opponent throws at you. And one of the cool things about her is the link to Hexia. When she goes to the graveyard, she tutors for any Altergeist card in your deck. So one of the cool things you can do is you can actually tribute her. Well, usually you want to negate a spell or trap your opponent throws at you, and then you'll negate a monster effect with Protocol, and then she'll search for something, and then you bring her back by with the materialization, the Call of the Haunted, and her effect is usually online again. And if your opponent tries to attack her, you can usually search Conquery and you can make it so they can never run her over. And even her stats can be a lot, like her stats are a lot easier to get higher than Prime Banshee. So like Konami released the Link monsters in the wrong order, but right now the deck is just incomplete. Like it's basically unplayable. And one of the cool things about Altergeist is, considering they're all kind of like they're all spellcaster based, it makes it really easy to run things like Wonder One, or what I like is the Spellbook of Knowledge plus Spellbook of Secrets, to run that stuff in the deck. You can also run the Wind Witches, as you guys will like see in the picture. I'm just showing you my build, and it's just a really fun deck. Some people say that I rely on Ice Bell and Scapegoat a little too much. I think even if Scapegoat like went to 1, I think this deck would be like fine. I could just replace it with like Instant Fusion or something else, but it is a really fun deck to play. And it's one of the times where I played against the deck. I got crushed by it because I had no idea what the deck actually did, and then I played it and then I sucked, and I was like, this table 500 deck garbage, get this shit out of here. And I started playing it again on my live stream, and when I learned how to play it, I was like, oh my god, this deck actually it's not bad. So I just wanted to talk to you guys about Altergeist because I don't know, I like Altergeist, and I felt like talking about them. And I thought that they were just another trash tier anime girl deck, and then I started playing them. I was like, whoa, this deck is fucking fun. And even if it's not that great, like it's really entertaining, and it looks nice, and it does a lot of cool, just annoying things that are I think interesting. Whatever you guys think, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already. Turn on that notification bell for daily videos.